Welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Vaijanta Anand, Associate Professor with Nirmala Niketan College of Social Work, affiliated to University of Mumbai. And we are looking at this particular module, which is Community Assessment Process and Methods, which is part of the course Community Organization, which is again part of the subject Social Work Education. Okay, so let us look at basically as part of community assessment tool, further what are the things which we need to do. This module will help the student to understand, all of you all to understand what are the various community assessment tools and what are the steps which can be followed in this. We will also look at many of the participatory research appraisal tools and comprehend steps and processes involved while using these tools. So basically, what is community assessment? We have gone through that in the earlier slide. It's the same thing where we are looking at assessing the community strength and weaknesses. The process is basically helping us to understand what kind of intervention is necessary, and we will be learning participatory research appraisal as a useful tool in community assessment. One of the very interesting kind of assessment tool which probably we have derived it from anthropology is transect walk. What does that mean? It means that actually taking a round in the community to get a feel of the community. It's like you're walking in the community and you're using local people as a guide to understand how the geographical community or even functional community exists or how do they function. So it's a structure walk or series of walks through a community. So it might be like, if it is a tribal community, probably you can go and stay in the tribal community and walk with them to wherever they go and follow them in their routine for the whole day. That is also a transect walk. Or you could go to a whole slum area and take a round in the all possible lanes of the slum community to get an understanding of how that particular slum structure is. Okay, so that is a transit walk. Now what do you understand? What is the aim? What should be the aim? You should get a topography of the area. You should get various kinds of, you are able to actually look at various critical resources. And you are also able to look at locations of different sections within the community. So if suppose in an urban slum area, you enter into urban slum area and you are able to see in the transect walk that there are Buddha mandirs. So you can definitely come to the conclusion, okay, there is a Dalit pocket in this particular community. Or you are looking at a larger community and suddenly you are able to see some places where you can say that denotified tribes are there. So definitely your strategies and all that later on, you will make a point of involving all these people into your strategies. What are you doing over in a transect walk? There are two types. One is general and one is purpose specific. So general transect walk is you are just observing everything, understanding the area and getting a cross sectional perspective. Specific is there is a predetermined and there is a particular kind of thing which you are looking for to understand a particular kind of infrastructure or resources that are available in the community. So what are the steps which you follow? You locate a group of local people who are willing to come with you, and you are asking the person to guide you in understanding the community. So if I am in a slum area and I want to look at informal sector in the slum area, so I will probably take a person who will show me all possible informal economic activity happening. It can be home based work to small enterprises, economic enterprises, to various kinds of economic activities existing. So what you have to do is you have to explain the purpose of walk to the people who are accompanying to you. You are observing the surroundings, you are making mental notes, and also you are stopping at some locations to have detailed discussion. Like in Dharavi, definitely you might stop at garment factories or in food factories to understand how do they function. So or leather factories, because that will give you a much needed understanding of later on how you will be able to utilize it, and where also you will get a chance to write down notes about what you have observed. Besides transact walk, you might do a social map. Social map would be, it would be a visual representation of residential area, but pinpointing basically social structure. So it is physical boundary of a given area, settlement pattern, which is basically culturally determined most of the time, physical infrastructures which are there, like various kind of institutions which are there, social and cultural and religious institutions which are there. So a map is drawn on the ground, okay, where people themselves directly participate, or if suppose it's in the tribal area or in the villages, they might draw it on the ground using pebbles and stones and leaves and branches and things like that. But if it is in an urban slum area, or if there is a youth group which is quite literate enough, you might draw the whole thing on a paper and preserve it later on, because it keeps improving once you get more and more acquainted with the community. Social map can be used to identify population distribution according to the religion, class, caste and all that. So a social map, what you need to understand it should have a direction. You should be able to locate it in terms of, if tomorrow you even, you look at it in terms of with a compass or with a GPS, you should be able to say this is east, west, north, south. So locate that, find a center in the community. So accordingly then you will be able to spread out and say what aspects or what different things are located. There is a lot of symbolism used. There are common well-known symbols which are used, like for a temple or for a school, or particular symbol is used. Probably in a particular community, people themselves may have symbols. So they might symbolize, like tribal community may give you symbols for everything, right, from crops to trees to hutments. So take those symbols and elaborate later on those, what those symbols mean, but your map basically will be described by use of symbols which are easily readable, which are easily decipherable. What do you follow when you are doing a social map? Ask the local people to prepare a map. Ask the group to show all the features of the settlement with you. They should sit and they should be able to tell you what are the buildings, where people are staying, what are the various resources. Label them and use symbols for them, as I pinpointed earlier. You can ask the people to pinpoint things like where is the river, where is the hill, where is the forest, where are the schools, where the health workers, health centers are, where exactly people, rich families stay. In a slum pocket, it would be more where the toilets are, where the school is, where the temples are, where basically, your public distribution service ration shop is. So that gives an idea in terms of how far or near these kind of services are compared to the marginalized groups which are staying in that community. So symbols are basically used in identifying various features of the community without actually anything which is there as written kind of words. Basically participants select the symbol. That is much more easier, because they are the one tomorrow who will help you, or they might help themselves by using this community mapping. So listen to the discussion, try to understand why they are selecting particular kind of symbol. Keep a track of who is actively involved, who is choosing the symbol. There might be conflict in deciding the symbol. See to it that everybody gets included, and proactive steps are involved in seeing to it that nobody is left out in the process of community mapping. Sometime a particular group of people may be left out in the whole community mapping. Especially that this happens in a village where Dalit community may be left out, or a nomadic tribe community which is little far away from the village may be left out in the community mapping. So these are the things which you have to keep in mind when you are doing a social mapping. What are the steps when you are when you are conducting a social mapping? What are the steps which you follow? Facilitator may want to include some things, okay, at the end of the mapping. So once the group has finished the map, the facilitator's role is to include, with consultation of group, which the facilitator probably has observed and group has taken it for granted. They may not notice it. You have noticed it and you are probably bringing it to the notice of the group and you include all that. Once the map is ready, you may ask question about findings as required, and copy the map on a larger sheet and keep it in such a way that it can be used later on. Okay. Also, keep it in a place where you don't miss it, or you can use it again and again. Sometimes your map may be completely different from the map which is available with the local ward office or local, because sometimes your slum is like a, they discover that the local ward office says that that slum is a huge playground, whereas there are like 10 lakhs of people staying in that, but it is shown in the map as if nobody stays there. That's an eye opener where they realize why services are not reaching out to them, basically because they don't exist on the government maps. You can do census map also, which is very tedious, where on your own you are actually looking at every single family and noting down the complete profile of the family. Census mapping will involve all the things which generally census requires. So all the things which you are doing for the community mapping, you are also doing it for every individual family in terms of their assets, their resources and everything. Other than community mapping, you need to do community profiling, meaning you need to describe the community. So you are basically talking about biophysical and socio-economic conditions of the community. So when you are doing community profiling, you are trying to bring the characteristics which makes it stand out compared to other communities. Okay, so what are you doing? It helps the community people and workers to learn about the local situation and appreciate it. So a community profile of a village which is well known for handloom, probably the profiling will show them how they stand as a village compared to other handloom based communities in other probably states or other districts. It also serves as a baseline for planning and implementation of whatever actions you will be taking up later on. A community profile may include information on the following basis: geographical characteristics of the community, history of the locality, population characteristics in terms of number of women, men, children, old people. The more the number of old people, the more you will realize that probably younger generation is very much migratory in nature, and they are not there in the villages anymore. The more the younger children, it means that families have migrated, leaving the younger children with the older population. So that gives you an understanding what kind of programs you would like to take up. Employment and income features, housing patterns and characteristics. This is very important because housing patterns tells you what material is being used, how much of money is being spent, major concerns of the community and resource available in the community. How do you do community profiling? You plan and prepare, it's like an exercise. So how is it going to be done? Who will be involved? What representations are you taking from different groups? So probably sometime you might have to do pocket mapping, community profiling. In a huge community, you might have smaller pocket and they might do their own profiling, and later on it is combined and made into a larger kind of profiling. So you review the results of other methods of PRA also. Based on all this, you come up with your own design of community profiling. So, you actually started by giving them a pen and a paper and telling them, okay, now you start putting it down what the community looks like. Okay, you can sit somewhere and observe how they are doing it. You also look at it in terms of whether people are getting excluded in it, whether everybody is included. If men and women are sitting together, probably women may not get chance to put down their idea of what community is. So you are facilitating a process in which everybody is included. Cross-checking, group discussion and all that is encouraged. You take down the notes because you are also understanding, in terms of dates and in terms of timeline, what are the things which are emerging out of community profiling. Community map, basically special kind of drawings are drawn by the people, which explains where the household is, where the livestock is, what are the farm sizes, water bodies, what are there, what are the diseases, what is the literacy rate. So there is a demographic profile which is included in it. Along with that, you are also mapping community resources, community property, roads, various kinds of facilities which are there in the community, that all goes in community mapping. How do you do it? You can take, kind of a training of the people who are involved in it in a community hall or in a common space, okay, or in the urban slum area. Probably you might find a kind of a look at people who are familiar with that area and take them together and do a community mapping. This is, you can look at this is one community mapping which has been done. You can collect a group of people from the community or neighboring household. You see to it that it's a heterogeneous interest groups, and you might feel that even if it is heterogeneous, you would like to have women and children walking separately and men walking separately, because it should not become that one group is dominated by somebody else. Facilitate the community to draw the map on the ground, because then many people will get involved in it, and then later on you might convert this into a map on the paper. Ask people to map out every possible thing which were enlisted before, like trees and lanes and everything, and the proportion in the map will invariably be determined by the importance given by the community. So people may think that farms are more important, so they may show farm prominently compared to the lanes or compared to the school or other resources. That also shows how much importance they are giving it to what kind of assets they have. Okay. So, and of course, symbols are used which are emerging out of the groups themselves. When you are doing a community profiling, it's also important to understand the historical profile. Why it is important is, for example, in one of the place where they have brackish water fishing, so there was a kind of a confusion in terms of when did the fisherfolk community actually emerge in that area, because it didn't look like originally it was a fisherfolk community. So it is very good to understand when did the water become brackish, how did water and creek come into the connection, and why it led to fisherfolk community coming up. So it helps to understand the historical perspective. Religiously, who are the people who give you all this information? Elderly people. Traditional, you get to know the traditional management system. Like in Rajasthan, Rajendra Singh was able to come up with the idea of johads or small kind of bund dams and things like that. Basically, it emerged from traditional water management system. So religious leaders may give some kind of cultural practices and religious beliefs which later on may help in understanding what are the systems followed by the community. That is why historical mapping is necessary. Sometimes you may also do a Venn diagram or chapati diagram. Chapati diagram can be done in different ways. One would be to look at the proportion of various beneficiaries of various resources. So you might realize that migrants in an urban area, all the resources which are there in the urban area, you can put it in the form of a diagram where you draw a kind of a circle, and you sort of take a midpoint and make cross section and put all the resources in the urban area. Okay, and then you draw another kind of a map and see what are the resources which migrants are utilizing and what they are not getting access to. And then there is a realization that urban area has so many resources, none of those resources are being actually accessed by the migrant community. Still they are seen as encroachers, they are seen as usurping all the resources of the urban area. So this kind of chapati diagram is one type. Another can be like a Venn diagram, where you are looking at the connection between various resources or various kind of people. This helps you to see whether it is near the center where community is situated or it is at the periphery which is non-accessible to the community. In a Venn diagram, in both kind of diagrams, it is necessary for the people to sit together, and the size and what should be put in and all that is decided by the people. If you are working in the villages, it is also probably a very good idea to put a seasonal calendar, seasonal chart, because then you get to know that okay, what are the drought phases, or when does the agricultural production starts, what are the different kind of crops which are taken. So it helps you to understand the impact of the season on the cropping pattern, and later on it helps you to evolve a kind of a viable model, sustainable model. It helps the community activities which can be evolved month by month, because if you are working with agricultural laborers, you might not find them when there is no agricultural season, or construction workers who keep moving from one place to another and depend a lot on seasons. You may not find them at all when you have planned some program for them. So it's essential that your community activities are designed around the seasons. You might also be able to plan intervention depending on what are the needs in those particular seasons. You can identify crisis periods in their seasonal calendar, and accordingly prepare them. If it is like flood prone area, probably you prepare flood mitigating or kind of strategies which will help minimizing the human and property loss. When you prepare a seasonal chart, you have to sit with the people, you have to understand the seasonal pattern, how they look at the seasonal pattern, how do they understand seasons, and map it out in terms of your understanding of months and festivals and various practices which are based on the seasons which are followed by the community. The steps which can be taken up is, you ask the participants to indicate what months of the year they undertake each activity. When the crops are taken, when there is a shortage, when do they take credit from the loan from rich people over there, when are the marriages planned, when do they migrate, when does the migration happen and what connection it has with the cropping pattern. Okay, when children are needed in the work, and how does it get in conflict with the education pattern of the school. All these things you will be basically able to chart out, which is the aim, to understand why children don't go to school in a particular time, what exactly is the impact on the economic background of the people. This can happen through discussions with analyzing the information given in the seasonal calendar, and with whatever records which are available in and around. It will be very helpful if you put down everything in the notebook, and it is all there recorded, so that later on you can refer to it again and again. It is also essential to look at timeline. Timeline basically gives you a historical sequence. Many times when you are working in the village or in the urban community and you ask them, when did you migrate? The person may not be able to give you a year. They will tell you, okay, when Indira Gandhi died, or when Rajiv Gandhi was assassinated, or when there was a major flood in Mumbai. And so you will be able to get a kind of a timeline which actually gives you an understanding of how this particular village or community evolved. So to help to build up the community database as well as to monitor the impact of program, also timeline is important. It's not just getting a historical sense of the community, but also when you are looking at, okay, these are the needs which have been identified by the people, let's build a timeline to see after so many months what is going to be an impact. So that is also very important. When you do a timeline, you have to get hold of key informants, people who are knowledgeable about this, who are able to give you a proper understanding, because sometimes they might refer to particular events which you may not be aware about. There should be a lot of group discussions, because group discussions basically brings out a lot of this kind of data. We need to also brief the community, the participants on how this exercise is conducted, or what kind of information is coming out and how it will be utilized. Going back in time, the discussion may begin with the oldest resident of the community. So, in the example which I was giving about brackish water, the woman, one of the oldest women said that when she got married and came into the village, there was no fishing. She did not belong to fishing community at all. But basically the Koina dam, which was, which came into existence, started letting out surplus water in rainy season, and that was the fresh water which kept coming and getting accumulated, leading to brackish water, leading to new kind of a fish coming up, and leading to fisher folk people who were agriculture farmers, because was water available and they could see a lot of fish availability, they started becoming fisher folk, and it was surprising to see that from that time onwards around 14 village pockets were solely dependent on fishing. So this is something which is very interesting when you look at timeline kind of exercise. Encourage discussions while exercise is being conducted, encourage to discuss the results, provide the information back to the community, when you do timeline exercise, because people also get an understanding of, in fact, when this information went back to the community, their first expression was, okay, just now because of the chemical pollutants, if all the fish have died, if chemical pollutants stop and if fresh water keeps coming in from the dam, probably in 5 years or 10 years of time, completely all the polluted water will go away, there will be fresh water, and there will be regeneration of all the fish which were there earlier. So this kind of hope only comes in when you are looking at your own timeline, in the process. Okay. Sometime it also helpful if you want to understand community members, you need to build rapport with the community members and get to know them much more in detail. It's also essential to understand lives of the community members, but sometimes it can become very, if you're not utilizing it sensitively. If suppose you want to know, what kind of time is consumed, in household chores, mechanical, tedious kind of chores by the women. So, obviously it would be good if you can participate and do all the work which woman does, or you have to sit there and compute every time a woman is working, or you have to sit and ask her what time it takes to do every activity, which women probably are not aware about. So probably what is needed is understanding community members. You have to actually live there, observe, keep a kind of a tab in terms of, okay, in the morning so much of time goes for these kind of activities, and a realization for the women that major part of their time in the day actually goes on the farm and farm related activities. So in a way they are not housewives who are not doing anything. They are doing so much of productive kind of work which has never been documented. The daily activity chart, along with this daily activity chart, can be prepared, which gives gender bias, which gives the bias with regard to marginalized group in that area. And depending on this, because many times it is seen that, okay, women are generally not doing anything, and then you realize actually they are the one who are doing lot of work. Then you get to know actually which are the groups which are not spending much of time in productive activity. Can we draw them into community action? Can they contribute into community action? Daily activity, again you have to identify people who are willing and who are able to explain their daily routine, who are okay with you following them and doing daily routine, or they are okay in recollecting the whole routine in front of you. One of the student followed a woman who actually collects old clothes and barters it with utensils. So she went on a walk with her from morning till evening to be able to understand how much time she spends in walking, how much time she spends in negotiating, how does she do bartering, and what exactly is involved in keeping herself safe on the road, in the community, in negotiating with the housing society watchmen to entering into a house. So that gave her an understanding of the routine, and accordingly then she was able to understand what kind of intervention is possible with this kind of a group. All this is basically, this can be also done by using various techniques. There is 24 seats technique or listing of activities, which can be later on found in detail in the e-text. If you look at it, they have given it in detail. Please follow that. It also helps in decision making when you are trying to understand how decision making is actually happening in the community. Who takes the decision? Who is the power center? Why they are in the power center? So it helps you to define and clarify issue. you are able to gather all the facts and understand why they are the power centers. Then you are able to come up with, brainstorm and sit with the people and coming up with viable options and solutions. So far only men have been deciding all the things, probably women should be involved, probably diverse group should come sit together and discuss how decisions can become much more democratic, So why particular power centers, what are the causes of the power centers, and how that power centers can be broken and made more democratic. All that can emerge in terms of decision making analysis. In conclusion, what are we looking at it is that all these maps where we have talked about community profile, community mapping, social mapping, you are using methods like transect walk or various kinds of things to basically understand and collect information about livelihood, economic structure, power centers, decision making processes, and you are using charts and daily activity charts and various things. And all these things later on, this whole data helps in two ways. One is to plan the programs, and later on to basically evaluate and monitor whether your programs are reaching out for the needs of the people. Please look at the e-text. There are a lot of maps given which will help you to chart out your own maps. There are books which are available which actually gives you symbols and in what way you can create your own maps. Please do refer to them, and thank you for being with us for this module.